Here in California, it's been one-party rule for so long that corruption has become totally ingrained and systemic, and I think that's all captured in this story of Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff, Dana Williamson.
In California politics, corruption is completely legal if you fill out the forms correctly.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Steve Hilton Show. Guess who is joining us on the show today? That viral video from Los Angeles the other week about a woman who complained about a biological man in the female changing rooms in a gym in Los Angeles, and she was the one kicked out. Tish Hyman, she is here with us on the show today. I can't wait for that conversation. Susan Shelley is with us with all the updates of California insanity, and a really interesting conversation with Allen Estrin, who's one of the co-founders of Prager U. He's got a fantastic book out, which is such an important one about our great history here in America and why we need to pay attention to it. But I want to start today with something that is, look, it's not a new thing. It's been going on since 2015. When I say that date, I think you can guess where I'm going with this. Trump Derangement Syndrome, TDS, is alive and kicking in the Democratic Party. It hasn't gone away. It's now 10 years, a decade, that we've had Donald Trump right in the center of the political scene here in America. And honestly, it seems as if the Democratic Party cannot get beyond their absolute hatred, detestation, loathing of Donald Trump and everything he stands for, everything he says, everything he does. Trump himself, just the existence of Trump seems to completely kind of eclipse any kind of political judgment or sanity or policy or positive ideas about what they want to do with any political power they may achieve. Is just Trump, Trump, Trump all the time. And we've seen it again in a number of ways just in the last few days. First of all, the shutdown. What was all that about? They finally caved without achieving anything, not a single thing, in terms of the list of demands that they made at the beginning of the whole process. All they did was cause pain and suffering, mainly for the exact people that they claim to represent, the poorest and most vulnerable in our society, hurt directly because of Trump Derangement Syndrome. That was the only reason that they did this whole thing, because they wanted to stick it to Trump. They didn't want Trump to have a win. They wanted Trump to what? I mean, they had no idea what it was about, other than to fight Trump and to show their base that they were fighting Trump. That's what it was all about. You could see it in the things that they said. And that's why actually Chuck Schumer, to be fair to him, when this whole thing came around the first time about the budget and voting to allow the normal budget making process to continue in Congress, he said, this is ridiculous. Let's just not go ahead with it. And he was absolutely crucified by his party for not fighting Trump. We need fighters who are going to stick it to Trump, on and on. And so this time around, he caved to the pressure, and you had this shutdown, the longest in American history, for nothing, literally nothing, other than for the Democrats to show how much they hate Trump. I think we knew how much they hated him. We didn't need a shutdown lasting longer than anything of its sort ever in American history, causing disruption to air travelers. We saw that with the flight delays and cancellations, of course, the SNAP payments, all these things. You know, people who work really hard in their jobs not getting paid, all because the Democrats hate Trump. So that's the first one. The second one, I mean, we've talked about it a lot before, but remember this outrageous election rigging scheme here in California, Prop 50, which cost $300 million of California taxpayers' money, remember? So everyone's talking about the fact that, you know, Gavin Newsom won this thing and got a big result, and now he's the, you saw a piece from Politico this week saying that he's the Democrat front runner for president because he had this famous victory. What does it actually boil down to? Another example of Trump Derangement Syndrome, because right at the beginning of the process, Gavin Newsom said, this is our opportunity to, quote, end the Trump presidency. And he said that exact same phrase in his speech celebrating the victory of this whole thing. He said, well, now we can end the Trump presidency, because the whole thing was about taking another 5 seats for the House, stealing them from Republicans to put it in the Democrat column so they could flip the House, impeach Trump. For what? There's no policy argument there. There's no specific thing that they want to get out of that. It's just, let's fight Trump, end the Trump presidency. This whole thing, this whole ridiculous campaign we've all just had to go through, as I say, costing California taxpayers who already pay the highest taxes in the country $300 million just to prove how much Gavin Newsom hates Trump. I mean, it's just obscene when you think about it. The kind of corruption and abuse of his power to do that, to make a point against Trump. I mean, that's basically, as I said all along, that $300 million is effectively a corrupt taxpayer-funded contribution to Gavin Newsom's presidential campaign. If he wants to run around attacking Trump on his own dime, fine, but he just made us pay for it. It's absolutely outrageous. And then the third example, just emerging this week, the latest entrant to the California governor's race is going to get very crowded on the Democrat side. We hear a lot of rumors about candidates about to throw their hat in the ring. And the latest one, Eric Swalwell. Eric Swalwell is apparently going to be running for California governor, may even be announcing this week on the Jimmy Kimmel show on Thursday. By the time you watch or listen to this, he may well have entered the race. We'll see. But why is he doing it? Well, they briefed the reason to MSNBC. There was a story, and here's the quote. Eric Swalwell wants to become California governor because, quote, it would give him a new and more powerful platform to attack Donald Trump. I mean, can you believe it? I suppose you can, because this is the way the Democrats behave. He's running for governor of California, the world's fourth biggest economy, the biggest, most important state in America, to use as a platform to attack Donald Trump. It's actually disgusting. Again, when you really think about it. Of course, we've got used to this because this is how Democrats are these days. They have no interest in policy, in issues, in governing, in making life better for people, in trying to help anyone. No interest in any of that. It's pure politics all the time, and with a very specific focus, attacking Donald Trump. That's what they live for. That's their whole, they get up in the morning, how can I attack Trump? What can I do to attack Trump? They are completely consumed by him. And now we have, apparently, a candidate for governor of California whose entire campaign is about turning that office into a platform to attack Donald Trump. No, that is not why you should run for office. You run for office because you want to help solve problems. You want to help people, make people's lives better. That's why I'm running for governor. And that's why I'm very confident we're going to win this campaign, because you got a bunch of people running on the Democrat side who are just offering either more of the same policies that they've given us the worst outcomes on every single thing that matters in the entire country, the highest costs, the highest gas prices, electric, highest poverty rate, highest unemployment, worst business climate, on and on. The people who did that want another 4 years to do that. Or now you've got a new bunch of people. Eric Swalwell, he's been in Congress, of course, not in power directly in California. And instead of talking about any of that, instead of focusing on anything that's real in terms of people's lives, he's saying, I want to run for governor so I can attack Donald Trump from a higher perch. I mean, honestly, this party has completely lost its way. Yes, they had some good results in those elections the other week, but this is no way to run a party. And unless they get beyond this Trump derangement syndrome, I just think the Democratic Party is just going to go down and down and down. Certainly here in California, I'm sure that we're going to vote for a candidate, that would be me, who is offering concrete plans to make life better, easier, more affordable for working families in California, for small business in California. I'm talking about making California golden again. The Democrats, they're talking about Trump. I know which one will win out. Susan, we have a massive swamp scandal here in California. One thing I've often said about what's going on with the corruption in California is that in many ways the swamp here is much worse than the place that term is often associated with, which is Washington, D.C., because at least in Washington, you've had different administrations come in and bring in their people and sort of break it up a little bit. Whereas here in California, it's been one-party rule for so long, the corruption has become totally ingrained and systemic. And I think, and also the attitude, the mindset of just arrogant disregard for any kind of rules, and like, we're in power here and who cares, and there's no accountability and nothing's ever going to happen, and we'll just continue the way we are. I think that's all captured in this story of Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff, Dana Williamson, but there's a lot more to it than just the headline. So take us through some of the key aspects.
The thing centers on Xavier Becerra's campaign committee for 2030. He had a campaign committee to run for superintendent of public instruction in 2030, while he was the Secretary of Health and Human Services in the Biden administration. Now, why did he have this? Well, this is very common in California politics. By the way, in California politics, corruption is completely legal if you fill out the forms correctly. So what they did is they had a 2030 committee. It had hundreds of thousands of dollars in it, and some consultants were bleeding it for $10,000 a month and then moving the money around and landing it in the bank account of someone who had a no-show job. So Dana Williamson has been indicted by the federal government, by the federal Justice Department, because what's legal in California is not necessarily fine with the federal campaign finance and criminal laws. So what's happening now is that two of her co-conspirators have taken plea agreements, and she has been charged with, I think, 23 counts of various things. She was charged with running this conspiracy to bleed the money out of Xavier Becerra's account, and she's been charged with tax evasion because she had a lot of luxury spending and deducted all those things as business expenses and not doing what the Democrats like to call paying your fair share. So she's been indicted for tax evasion. And interestingly, on the day she was arrested, which was last Wednesday, her attorney made a point of telling Politico publicly that she was asked by the FBI if she had any information about illegality by Gavin Newsom. And the lawyer made a point of saying she told them no, she didn't know anything. She'd never seen the governor do anything that was inappropriate or illegal. And they made a big public statement about that. Clearly, there's an ongoing investigation. And she was wiretapped. So we don't know what they're going to have on everybody else, or if she's
an ongoing
going to
investigation into Gavin Newsom.
We don't know. Public corruption in California. And
Because
we know there's a lot of it.
I have seen that report that he's been under investigation for 3 years. He has, Newsom.
So we don't know what they have. If they were wiretapping, if they've got the IRS criminal division working on where the money went. Gavin Newsom has two big mansions, and Jennifer Van Laar from Red State has done interesting work on whether those LLCs that bought those properties were reported correctly on his financial disclosure forms. We don't really know exactly who's where with all that money. But there's a lot of money that goes through these California committees, that we know. And it's very common for politicians to open a committee for an office they're never intending to really run for and park their money in that, because you can transfer it from one California committee to another California committee. And then as long as you keep track that no one donor is over the limit, it's fine to do that, even if you keep it for decades.
So what is the point of that? Is it to evade the limits by having people give the maximum amount to a number of different committees? Is that the point?
Well, you certainly can use it that way. In 2019, the current mayor of San Diego, Todd Gloria, was running for mayor. He had won his assembly seat in 2018. He had about $300,000 left in the account. And he didn't want it to become, quote, surplus, which means you have to give it to charity and you can't just keep it. So he opened a 2020 reelection committee and moved the money into it. Now, when you do that, you're supposed to sign a form. It's called a statement of intention that you're really going to run. It's under penalty of perjury that you intend to run for the assembly. But he didn't. He didn't do that. He just opened the committee and moved the money. One of his opponents for mayor noticed this and said, "What's this?" and filed a complaint with the Fair Political Practices Commission, which opened an investigation. And at that point, it was August of 2019, Todd Gloria signed the form that said, "Oh, yes, I intend to run for the assembly," to do all the paperwork to make it correct. But he didn't. He was running for mayor. So the deal was, by raising money in the assembly committee, which he was continuing to do, that had higher per donor limits than the mayor's race by like 3-1. So he could spend that money on self-promotion. He could donate it to party committees. He could donate it to local groups that were doing fundraising. He could do whatever he needed to do as long as it wasn't directly spent on the mayor's campaign. And this is the game. You can have your donors give money to all your different committees, your ballot measure committee. Mike McGuire, the leading Democrat in the Senate, has 3 or 4 committees. He has a committee now for Congress, which he just announced for, but he also has 3 state committees. He has a ballot measure committee. By the way, those have no contribution limits whatsoever. And then he has a committee he was going to run for insurance commissioner next year. So he has a committee there with money in it. And he also still has his Senate 2022 committee that's still active with $80-some thousand in it. So people can give to these different committees and they can buy influence tripled because they can continue to give. And then on top of that, you have these behested payments, which Gavin Newsom has made tremendous use of to fund, among other things, his wife's enterprise, his wife's California Partners Project, to the tune of, I think, $3 or $4 million. He's coerced out of people for her project to support, quote, the work.
We talked about that in one of our very first conversations, but it is so staggering. Just remind everyone about these behested payments, because it really is legalized corruption.
It's absolutely.
And is it just the governor, or can other officials do it?
All public officials in California can do this. And this is a category of contribution that is not a campaign contribution. What it is a payment that an elected official can ask for without any limit on it, no limit on the amount, for a, quote, governmental, legislative, or charitable purpose. So Gavin Newsom behested $8.8 million out of people with business before the state for his inaugural committees. Gee, I wonder why they answered the phone and said yes. He's coming in as governor. He's going to have tremendous power over the union contracts, over the various regulations and the various appointments. And he called up and he asked for money for his inaugural festivities. Twice he did this, and he raised $8.8 million.
So there's no limits on those donations?
No limits on those at all. And so what did he do with that money? Well, he didn't spend it all on fireworks for his inaugural. He spent $4 million, which he behested. At the behest of the governor, his inaugural committee gave $4 million to the California State Protocol Foundation. What does that do? It pays for the governor's trips out of the state. So when he went to China in 2023, the California State Protocol Foundation paid for the travel. And so follow the money. He extorted it out of people with business before the state. He donated it, or he had it donated at his behest to this foundation, and then the foundation is paying for things that help him run for president. This is all legal in California.
It's unbelievable. And the behested payments thing is notionally transparent because you can find it, but no one really knows about it. I mean, you've dug into it, but no one else has. And it's just, it's staggering. And then at the same time, you've got the other form of legalized corruption, which is just the systemic legalized corruption of the unions, who own. I mean, it's a story I've told many times, which is that, when I was working on housing policy and trying to get something through there, and there was a proposal that a Democrat legislator told me that they were fully on board with and thought it was great, transformational for our housing situation in California. And I said, great, will you support it publicly? They said, no, I can't do that publicly. The unions would hate it. And I said, why? So what? And they said, well, because the unions run this place, waving their arm around Sacramento. And you just think, that's corruption. And yet no one does anything about it. No one says anything about it.
Well, that's very true. If California became a right-to-work state, it would end a lot of that power and a lot of that force that's exerted on the taxpayers' dollars. And, the unions, not just the public employee unions, but also the building trades, they have a lot of power, and they can force these provisions into, for instance, bond spending, that you must use union labor at the prevailing wage, skilled and trained workforce, whatever terminology they use. It's union labor only, and it's much more expensive. So it raises the cost of repairing a school or building any kind of public building that's paid for with bond funds, it raises the cost, and it's all done through political influence. And the political influence comes from electing people by putting a lot of money and manpower into getting certain people elected. If you don't do what they want, they'll give the money and manpower to somebody else to beat you in the primary. And that's how this game has
Yeah, I
played.
mean, it's really disgusting. I mean, do you think this Dana Williamson scandal involving Gavin Newsom, will it lead to any change or not really? It'll just be sort of glossed over.
It's very difficult to say. It's a federal prosecution. There were some people who were prosecuted on the LA City Council by the federal government, and it did lead to convictions. So it could happen. It's usually quite slow. So in terms of the political calendar and the legal calendar, they don't always line up. Sometimes people are getting reelected while they're under investigation. Public corruption is a difficult thing to investigate. Much of it is legal. You know, a lot of the influence peddling that looks like it should be illegal, it's just politics. It's considered, the Supreme Court has said, just politics. So we'll see.
So let's turn to the fires and the latest on that in LA. I mean, this story just never goes away and it never gets any better. In fact, it gets worse in terms of what we're learning. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is coming from Spencer Pratt, who has done outstanding reporting on this, and you can find him on X. He is reporting that firefighters are telling him that the reason that the city firefighters did not fully extinguish the January 1st fire, which is now blamed for reigniting and causing the January 6th and 7th fire, the reason they didn't do that is because of pressure not to damage endangered plants. And that might sound crazy, but a few years back, I think it was 2019, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power was fined $2 million by the Coastal Commission. Why? Because they were doing a perfectly rational project in Topanga State Park where they were replacing power poles that were wooden and had been there since the 1930s or 40s or 50s. Time for them to go, replaced with steel poles. They also wanted to widen a road for fire access, and they wanted to replace the wires with something more wind and fire resistant. So an amateur botanist is walking through Topanga State Park, sees this work going on, and complains that they're damaging an endangered plant called the milk vetch, Bronton's milk vetch. And because of Bronton's milk vetch, they had to stop the work, they had to replant the plants, and they were fined $2 million. And this is the same city that made the decision not to fully extinguish the Lockman fire in the same state park. And the reason the work was being done by LADWP in the canyon was to protect the Palisades from fire risk. Because in the 1960s, there was a very severe fire in the same area. And that's why there was a reservoir constructed. And that's why everyone had this institutional memory that you have to have fire protection so that that doesn't happen again. And look what happened. Now they're protecting the milk vetch plant and not the homes.
It's really amazing. And the fire, just to be precise, this is to sort of tie these pieces together. That January the 1st fire, what was the name of it again?
Lockman is what they're calling it.
Yeah. So that was the one that they arrested someone for arson for starting.
Right. And the question is, why was it not fully extinguished? Because they now admit that it was not.
And we've seen video online of embers that are deep underground, right? And smoke coming from them.
Right. And the firefighters who were on the scene have said on background that they saw that. And now the new fire chief recently confirmed in the city of Los Angeles as well, they didn't have thermal imaging that they should have used to see the hot spots. They didn't need thermal imaging. They had firefighters on the ground who saw it. And there's video all over the place of the smoldering. You can find it. People with their cell phones, everybody's a TV station, everybody's a broadcaster. So you can see that that was happening. The question that never made any sense was, well, why did they do that? They knew they had this wind event coming up. Why didn't they fully extinguish that fire? I mean, these are professionals. You know, they know what they're doing. Why didn't they? And the answer is probably this institutional fear of being sued over endangered plants.
It's absolutely, it's just a massive scandal. It's a massive, massive scandal. And so what is the process for getting to the bottom of it? Gavin Newsom already published his independent objective after action report investigation, correct? That's already come out.
I think so, yes. Well, there's a lawsuit going on. Palisades residents are suing, and I believe there were just some responses filed from the mayor and the governor. And they're saying, the mayor is saying, well, the city has immunity from lawsuits, so never mind. And the governor, I think, is making either a similar argument or something that they did everything that could be done. Whatever they're arguing, it will all come out in court. There's also a separate Senate investigation.
You think it will come out in court?
I do think it will all come out in court. What they knew and when they knew it and what they decided to do. I think the communications will be recovered. The Senate is going after them. The Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations in the, I believe it's the Government Oversight Committee. They've sent letters to the LADWP and the LAFD, the fire department, asking for all the communications around this period of time of the fire between the city, the state government, the federal agencies, each other. They want all the communications. They want to know what happened. And I think if they don't get it, there will be subpoenas and they will eventually get all that information.
And Ron Johnson and what's his name, Rick Scott.
I think so, yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's what they're, I mean, it's just a massive scandal, a massive, massive scandal.
Yes.
And it's interesting because it points to something that, you know, I've said quite a bit in the course of this. I mean, it's now nearly a year, is a word that's been used a lot in connection with all of this was incompetence. They're so incompetent. They're so incompetent. And I said, well, yeah, there's a bit of that, but actually it's not really that. It's worse than that. It's on purpose. It's ideological. It's they have an ideology here. It's not by accident that some of this stuff happened. And for example, the failure to clear the brush and maintain, you know, fire break, all that stuff, which you and I have discussed many times, both in this situation, but also up at, you know, the forest equivalent of it in the Sierras. That's ideological. That's not incompetence. They deliberately did that.
Well, you've talked about this in many other contexts too. The trying to protect the endangered fish and not bringing water to the cities and farms. And that's the same sort of thing. It's making these trade-offs with the environment versus human needs that have these terrible, terrible consequences. And we're also seeing it in the energy industry where they don't want to drill for oil until we get to the point where it's politically damaging because gasoline is going to go to $8 or $10 a gallon. Now they'll drill for oil.
Just to be clear, and we'll have to leave it on this point, Susan, they don't want to drill for oil. They don't want to look like they're drilling for oil. So they don't want to drill for oil here in California, but they're perfectly happy for someone else to drill for oil somewhere else and then import it on giant super tankers spewing out carbon emissions. Most notably, as we highlighted this week, they're okay with drilling for oil in the Amazon rainforest, even as Gavin Newsom flies there to preen in front of the global climate elite and then buy half the oil drilled in the Amazon rainforest because he's shutting it down in California. I mean, it's just so insane and offensively stupid and destructive. I don't know what to say.
Well, you can say you'll fix it.
There you go. Nice way to end. That's exactly right. I will, because we'll get rid of this insanity, this climate zealotry, and have common sense, open up our energy, and take care of our communities, manage the forest properly, all of these things. I keep saying, as in this campaign for governor, none of it is that complicated. It really isn't. It's just basic common sense. And that's what we need to restore. Susan, thank you so much. Great to be with you today.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be with you.
Joining us now is the person who's been at the center of an amazing viral phenomenon in the last couple of weeks. You've seen the videos of this person who was kicked out of a gym in Los Angeles for objecting to biological men in the women's locker room. Our guest today, Tish Hyman. Tish, I cannot believe I actually am with you today. Ever since this ridiculous story broke and your amazing response to it and your strength and your energy has just been absolutely mind-blowing and inspiring. Let's just go back to the beginning. You know, I actually went down to the gym. I'm on the road running for governor of California. And like soon after, I think the day after, I went down to the Gold's Gym there at the Beverly Center in LA, just to sort of, you know, make clear where I stood on all this. But you're at the heart of it. Tell us let's start with what happened and then we'll get into where you're taking all this.
Well, what happened was a series of events over a 2 week span that initially brought my attention to the fact that this was happening constantly. The first encounter was a male, and I just turned around after getting out of the sauna, getting dressed, and I was naked, and he was standing there. And then I look and I say, "Sir," and he goes, "You can't tell me anything. B word, I'm a woman." And that was the first encounter, and I was just like confused and sharp and thinking to myself, this just seems ridiculous. And when I went to the front to report it, I come to realize that all they could do was take a report and that there wasn't any legal or anything that they could action that they could take other than that. And this happened the next day. That's when I met Alexis Black. The first one was not Alexis Black. Alexis Black was it's the second one. And I was in the locker room and I said to Alexis Black, I said, "Sir, you can't be in here. Like this is crazy. What are you doing? You can't tell me nothing. B word, I'm a woman, very hostile, very much don't care, disregard, get out type of energy." And so after a few weeks of this happening, he tried to quietly make reports every time, three different males on three different males on seven different occasions that I had this running with. And the total seven was over 30 days. The first four was over 2 weeks. So I just was tired. And when the last time came that I was really afraid, that I ran into the locker room and got guys to help me, this was the time when they decided to cancel my membership and escort me out by police, which was very embarrassing. I've never been in prison. I'm not a criminal. It was just like, why are they doing this? Just because this guy did this. And so they walked me out with police. And as I was walking out, I realized that there would be no one there to warn the girls. And that was what I was doing. At this point, I was like getting emails and trying to create some sort of strategy to talk to the CEOs of the company. So I just kind of decided I'm going to yell it out and I'm going to say it so everyone in the gym knows what's happening. Because when I came out looking for help and the guys helped me, I realized they didn't know what was happening. And men don't know what's going on in the women's locker room. And a lot of women don't know what's going on in the locker room. So I told. And that is how we got to this viral moment.
So these people in the locker room, biological men, are they naked or are they actually changing, exercising? Are they literally just what's going on with them?
On different occasions, they were doing different things in the restroom. I didn't see any naked men in the restroom. I was naked in the restroom with men. And that really kind of showed me a little bit. It gave me a little idea of what's going on there because they're not even naked. They're hanging out in there. And why are you in here? Why are you in here? I'm naked. I'm using the sauna. You're sitting around. Why are you in here? And Alexis Black has never been naked in front of me. He's been naked in front of other girls. He's been doing it so long and so crazy he doesn't even know who he exposed himself to. He's never been naked in front of me. I was naked 2 times when I argue with this man. It's just like it doesn't make a difference if it's one man, two men. It doesn't make a difference if it's a trans man. One man's energy and in presence in the locker room is intimidating.
But the thing that's crazy about this is that this kind of thing in the past, it's like a crime that for that to do that. It's a crime, and now you're the one that's being treated like a criminal. It's just totally crazy. I went into the gym actually to your gym, and I spoke to them about it, and I wasn't aggressive. I just wanted to hear what they had to say, and they said that it was the policy of the gym to allow people to use the locker room of their gender identification, and that's because it was state law, and there's nothing they could do about it.
Yes, and that's an issue. I heard you mentioning you're going to run for governor.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
That's really interesting because we do need new leadership. And, I've been looking around a lot about all of this. Who's running for governor, who's running for mayor, who's taking the Senate seats, and just trying to educate myself. Because one thing this situation did do was open my eyes to a big problem that we have in politics with the Reds and the Blues. What are you running? Which gang are you in?
Oh, I'm Republican.
The Reds. Okay,
Yes.
so I call the Reds and the Blues the Bloods and Crips of politics. Because at this point, from what I'm seeing as a newcomer, it's like gangs. They can't reach a solution. They're at war and the people are suffering in between this. And I think that that's the biggest issue with politics is that there's too much gang activity going on and not enough world activity. The left and the right is supposed to be on the same plane, guiding the states and guiding the world in one direction, not fighting to go one direction or the other. So the plane is doing like this and can't no one get a solution. And on top of that, the law is ridiculous. It's there's no way to make a perfect bill. So I won't sit here and say that whoever created these bills and passed these laws understood the 360-degree effect it was having. Maybe words can be manipulated and used for evil that were once made for good. So I'm not here to attack the personal opinions or the personalities or the morals of the people who put these bills into play. I'm just like, let's get focused on the bills. And so, it would be good I'm very interested to watch you run and see what your views are on all of this, because we need someone who understands California in a real way. How long have you lived in LA?
So I live in the Bay Area, but I've been here. I came from England,
Okay.
2012. So I've been here 13 years. Been an
Okay.
American like that, who became, visa and green card, became a citizen. And the thing that I feel is like there's no common sense anymore, right? Because these things that are just obvious to normal people, just across the board, all political backgrounds, it just feels like, why is this happening? It makes no sense. It's just crazy. I looked into it with one particular part of this in my campaign when it was not this thing about the locker rooms, it was the sports thing. And there was a bill passed and I dug into it, and I also looked into what I can do as governor to overturn it. And that is a bill on the sports. It was AB 1266, and it was passed in 2013 by the state legislature. So it's been around 12 years. And this is the one that allows the participation in sports by gender identification. And that's crazy. When you have, I was just with Caitlyn Jenner, who's a friend of mine, just the other day. She's like, this is ridiculous. Why? I don't think like that. When I play golf and they said to me, this is Caitlyn Jenner talking, why don't you, go with the women's circuit? And she said, well, why would I do that? I'm way taller. I'm much stronger. Doesn't make any sense, and so on that particular one on sports, I know, because I've talked to my legal team, including one of the top lawyers for a former governor, that I can start the process of overturning that bill because it violates the state constitution, which includes on two grounds: gender discrimination and safety in schools. What I'm really looking at right now, actually following what you highlighted there and what the gym said to me, which is that this is the law on restrooms and locker rooms. I looked into which law, like when did that all start? I think it goes back to I was looking into it, some opinion from the Human Rights Division of the state, whatever it is, going back like 2011. So this is, we got to get to the details and really figure out how we turn this around, because it's just not okay.
Yeah, I think there's just, like you said, there are things that need to be overturned, and I feel like I don't know when the government started acting like our friend, but I think it needs to stop. There was a time where like Black people were called the N-word. First we were property, then we were called the N-word, then we harassed, then we were called colored, segregated, killed, and bombed, and then in the end, finally the government was like, you know what? Let's just make it illegal to kill them and let them go. Figure it out, Black people. And that's what we had to do. So that's what these men have to do that want to wear dresses, okay? They need to understand that they're just simply men. Nothing special to see here. No special rights needed. No special civil anything. They need to be treated just the same as any human man. And they just wear dresses. Big deal. But they can't be in a women's locker room. It's just what happened is we got confused. Somebody confused the world by saying that these are women. And they're not women. Trans are not women. They're not even trans. They're just men that wear dresses. Because some of them don't do the operation. Some of them are straight. Who cares? Who cares? They're just men in dresses. So once we just get that out of the way, stop making it a big deal, stop making it so that they can put on these dresses and get all the attention that they've been getting, we will see a slowly decrease of the people doing weird things like going into the restroom and things like that. You need to make it fines and felonies for people to cross over in the bathrooms. It's very simple. People need the corporations and the people that gave them transformations, hey, you forgot something. Their bathrooms, okay? And their restrooms and their locker rooms and trans sports, whatever you want to call it, they could have their own sports. It'd be the most entertaining thing that ever happened to TV. But the reality of it is they need to stay out of women's sports. They're men. All the protections and all of that. They're using Black civil rights as a tool to push this. And I know for a fact that Martin Luther King didn't march for this, yo. Rosa Parks would have got right off that bus if she knew it was heading here. We don't do this. This is not a part of our culture. So for them to use civil rights as a tool really makes me upset.
Really interesting. That's a really interesting aspect of it. I mean, look, a couple of things. I mean, I'm totally on the sports thing. I mean, actually, when as part of my campaign, I did that legal analysis and said, right, I'm going to overturn this bill. I did it. I went to the state track and field championships in Clovis, and this campaigner Sophia, who set up this organization, Save Girls Sports, came and joined me. I'm actually literally wearing her wristband now. I've been wearing it since. You can't really see it because the light was pink. Wristband, Save Girls Sports. I said, I'm not taking it off till I've actually done it, because as a reminder that this is something we need to do. I want to ask you about the trans thing in terms of physical presence in the locker room. I totally, very clear. Why do you think, like some people say, like, what does it matter if people want to self-identify, call themselves, they say, I'm a woman. What's wrong with that, as long as they're not, if we can deal with the locker room situation? Why does that bother you?
Them saying they're women?
Yeah.
It's confusing, the whole entire world. It bothers me because they've been doing it for the last few years and it didn't do anything but confuse everybody. The truth of the matter is that these are men who wear dresses, and that's just that. For whatever their reasoning is, we don't have to have a whole education on why somebody wants to do something that we might not think is cool, or we might think is weird, or we don't want to know about. We just know this. There are men in dresses. There are no more than no less. There's no reason to call them women, because that's the problem. And that's why everybody's confused on whether they belong in sports. That's why everybody's confused on whether or not they belong in the locker room, because everybody's lying. They're not women. They're nothing like women. Nothing like women. Not a single thing about any man could be women-like.
I want to sort of get into where you're going now with all this. Like, I really, you got such a strong reaction, not just to the original video and so on, but you were there with Scott Wiener.
Yes.
Tell us how that happened. What was that, and why were you there? That was a really interesting moment that got a lot of reaction.
Well, I'm very much an action type of woman. This happened to me. It changed my life. It was traumatic, and I don't want this to happen to someone else. So this, I'm a singer and all my music is about life anyway. So this is just my natural reaction to something like this. And my reason for going to Scott was because I became aware that he has passed a lot of bills that are affecting me right now. And I wanted to address that. And I wanted to ask him about it, because I'm not in the Bloods and Crips of politics. I don't have a premeditated notion on who everyone is. I'm coming in with a fresh mind like a baby. So I'm like, let me come in and let me meet him and let me ask him these questions that I want to know the answer to. Instead of saying, Scott Wiener's this, Scott Wiener's that, I don't know him. So I went and I asked him the question, and I got the non-answer that I got. At the time, I didn't realize how much this was going to be a big deal and why. I just wanted to ask questions. This is just me seeking information and doing the work and trying to figure out how can I help. So that's why I went to ask Scott Wiener, and you saw his answer.
And was that in San Francisco, one of his political events?
It was his first speaking event since he's mentioning that he's going for Pelosi's seat.
Right. And so does this mean that you're now going to be in this world of campaigning?
I'm going to be in this world. I'm not ready to make an announcement in what capacity, but I'm going to be in this world. And my main goal in this world is to tell people to use their brains. I'm not going to tell anyone to vote for anyone, because that's not how I operate. But what I plan on doing is looking at everybody running and saying what I believe about the people running to my audience, to the Black people, because they need a representative in this. We and the brown people, but I mean, I'm just trying to talk to people who I feel like are not really paying attention to politics, because I used to be one of those people up until this point. And I'm going to be watching for who's going for Pelosi's seat, and I'm going to look for the best person to support. I'm going to be watching for who's going for mayor, and I'm going to look for the best person to support with the best policies, y'all, with the best bills, not even the best person to support. I'm looking for the best legislation to support, the best thoughts to support. And in my own participation, I am trying to determine that I will know more about what I plan to do. And by 2026, I'll be making my announcements with what I plan to do in the political space. I've been in LA for 15 years. I'm from New York City, born and raised, and I'm 42 years old. And I have a really strong creative mind, and I have a very good network in LA of like some of the strongest, smartest people. So, I'm just learning right now. I'm in the process of learning, and now that I met you, I'm going to be looking at you, trying to figure out, because we need a great governor. We also need somebody great in Pelosi's seat. We also need somebody great in the mayor's seat. And all three of these entities need to be in cahoots. Everybody need to be together. Nobody need to be separate. The governor, the mayor, the Senate, everybody that's coming in 26 need to be like, yeah, I like you. I like what you're doing. Let's do it together.
It's interesting because actually it's like, I mean, the guy who's now the mayor of San Francisco, he's a friend of mine. I mean, I'm running as a Republican. He's a Democrat. He's definitely, you could say, a more sensible Democrat. He's not ideological like some of the other ones. The other guy who's a bit like that, the mayor of San Jose, also in the Bay Area, a guy called Matt Mahan, who I know, not as well as the guy in San Francisco. Matt Mahan is a Democrat. He's very practical, so it's exactly what you're saying. It doesn't have to be like this kind of, like blue is bad, red is, like that's not what it's like. It's people in the end. And you've got two of those mayors now in those cities that I think are trying to do, sensible things. I really do, even though they're Democrats. I would say that. I wanted to ask you about your music though, because I started following you and paying attention. It was you, wasn't it? I was just thinking this morning, it was in my head, Man in the Mirror. Didn't you do like an amazing version? I think I reposted it.
Yes, I sang that at a event for the Grammys this year with La Russell.
It was so, I mean, it was for me transformed that song, honestly. There was
Aw,
a soul
thank you.
to it that I didn't really get in the original, to be perfectly honest with you.
Oh, that's a huge compliment, because Michael, boy, he sang that thing. I was a little nervous to sing it, but I just went for it and did my best, like I do with everything I do.
Well, it was very powerful. I watched it and then I went and watched the original. He's amazing. I'm not having whatever. I don't want to get into that. I actually saw him, funny enough, when I was a kid in England. I went to a big, like this would have been the early 80s or something. But I found your version to be very, very soulful and powerful. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I hope you keep doing that.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely going to keep making music. I mean, music is my calling. It's my God-given gift, and I have a voice that I've just seen the reaction I get from people, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. I think that this thing that happened with the restroom and me being made aware of men being allowed to do this was just another event in my life that just brought me to another path. And I don't plan on stopping music. I think that you can do both. You can work to protect people and help make the world a safer, better place, and do music. And so I plan on doing both. And yeah, I got new music coming out. In 2 weeks, I'm gonna release a song called Bad Vibes. And it's about, this situation, and it's about like just being strong and making awareness of a situation, not attacking a group, because I don't have anything against men that wear dresses. I just have something against people being confused about what they are. It's like, no, they're men, and it's okay. I don't know where the hate's coming from, but they're men. So can we get back to the things that matter now? Things that we need to change the world, to focus on things that matter.
I love it. Well, listen, you're such a force. You've just burst into all of our.
Oh, you know what? Let me put this on your thought process,
Yeah.
Mr. Future Governor. So there are men in women's prisons. Men.
Right.
Fully intact
Right.
men. Do you understand that they are picking women out like chickens in there and doing every and anything they can do right now at this very moment? So we need to bring awareness to this, and we need to do something about this. This is something that needs to happen before the end of the year. I don't understand how people dragging their feet with the bill. The bill, somebody needs to present the bill. It needs to be overturned like now. Women right now are in danger. Right now.
Well, actually, the governor, I mean, the state prisons is something directly under the control of the governor. So I could do something about that right away. That's insane.
I mean, I think if you want to do things, you just do them, right? So you're going up for governor. One, you're from England. That's already, Americans, how we are. You'll be like, excuse me? So if you want to do something, you got to do something. You got to do a lot, actually. You almost like black people. Black people, we have a saying. We have to be 2 times as great and 2 times as better than everybody else because we're black. Well, it's kind of the same when you're not American born and you got an accent too. You got to be 2 times as better, because we got to listen to this accent and we got to believe that this accent knows what to do with us. All right. So come on, so get out there. That's your first thing. Go ahead. Get the girls protected in jail. They're just as important. Their life is not any less valuable because they're criminals. Men are raping them in there.
It's unbelievable. Listen,
right now.
Tish, thank you so much. That's a good challenge. I got it. And hope to see you soon. Thank you for
Yes,
everything.
me
Thank
too.
you
I'll
for
be looking out for you, and it's gonna take a lot of people being like this to reality and like this to the bull for us to move forward.
All right. I'll see you later. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited now to welcome to the show the author of the new book, The Honest Book of Presidents, The Men Who Shaped America, Allen Estrin, who is also co-founder of an absolutely incredible institution that I so admire, PragerU. Allen joins us now. Allen, it's great to see you. I'm such a huge fan of PragerU and Dennis and everything that you're all doing there. So it's an honor to have you join us. Tell us about this book.
The book is The Honest Book of Presidents, and it's really two books, Steve. The first book is biographies of all the presidents, from Washington through our current president, Donald Trump. That's book number one. And book number two, it's obviously the same book. It is a biography of the United States of America. And the reason I say that is because every major issue that has confronted the country, from Washington through Trump, whatever that issue happens to be, it always passes through 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So if you read this book, not only will you learn about presidents and get a lot of information, fascinating, surprising, intriguing information about the presidents, you'll also be, as it were, getting a short course on American history.
And it's interesting to me that this is needed. I mean, it really is needed, because the study of all of this has just been so diminished in our country. Of course, you play such an important role just in an ongoing way. PragerU trying to correct that. But talk to us a little bit about what, in a sense, what was the motivation for this book? Why you think it's necessary?
Well, it's necessary. You kind of just hinted at it. It's necessary for a number of reasons. First, this material, this just basic material, is not taught in our schools today. And if you just think about it in a common sense way, doesn't it kind of make sense that American students from, let's say, fifth grade on would study and have an understanding of who the leaders of the country were through its history? It just seems like it should be de rigueur. It just should be obvious. But unfortunately, it's not. That's the first point. The second point is, when history is taught now in our schools, too often it lacks context. So we call this the Honest Book of Presidents, and it could really be called the contextual book of presidents, in the sense that we evaluate these men, and they were all men, as it happens.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Like, you can't have men and you can't have white men, you know.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. These guys were living in a particular time in history. And if you don't assess them based on the time they were living in, then you don't have an honest assessment of George Washington. If you say George Washington owned slaves, therefore he was a bad man, therefore I don't need to know anything about George Washington or Thomas Jefferson or James Monroe or any of our presidents, and many in the early years did own slaves, then you're just depriving your students, you're depriving the American people of a full understanding of American history. So that's a big part of the need here, is to place the presidents in context of their time.
And also that sense of just linear historical knowledge, like how, and I'm going right back to my study of history back in England, where I grew up. And I remember, I mean, I've probably forgotten most of the detail, but not all of it. We literally went through, in England, of course, kings and queens. And it was from, and you just go through in order and you learn the different periods and the different reigns. And that's literally how I learned history.
Isn't that how it should be? It's, we state these obvious things now, but they're not obvious anymore. I mean, go through the presidents one by one, as I suggested earlier, and you'll get an understanding of American history.
But it's also how people learn. I mean, this is what's interesting. The fact that you've done it this way is that a story is, history is one thing. What happened next? This happened, and then that happened. That's how we think. That's humans, natural way of processing this kind of information. But instead, it seems to be the case, and obviously I'm not there either teaching it or receiving it. I have two sons who are on the receiving end of some of this kind of stuff. It feels, but certainly from the reporting, but I'd love you to expand on this, feels like it's all of that simple, obvious, common sense. What happened next? What does that tell us? Why do we need to know? That's all been replaced by a sort of ideological framework where it's conceptual and concepts that are coming from a very, very left-wing place. That sort of seems to be what's replaced this linear approach. Is that right?
Oh, I think it's totally correct. Absolutely, it's correct. And it's just a shame. I'm not against conceptual teaching of history, but, and again, this is a big problem. Unless you have the foundation, and what we're really talking about, Steve, with this book is the foundation. Unless you have the foundation of American history, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, it's very difficult to understand the concepts. Then the concepts, it's like you're really putting the cart before the horse. First comes the basics. This book it equips you with the basics. Then when you get into the concepts, then you're in a position as a student, as just an American citizen, of saying, yeah, but what about that? And I don't accept this concept. This makes more sense to me. And you're, as I say, in a position to argue. Now, when you start with the concepts, where are the concepts coming from? One of the things that we talk about at Prager U is that everybody says we're in a war of ideas. Okay, I accept that. What are the ideas? Where do the ideas come from? We need that foundation, and we don't have that foundation. And unfortunately, it's not merely an intellectual discussion we're having. This is basic stuff.
Yeah.
If American people don't understand their country, where it came from, what the founding first principles are, then they're going to have a very difficult time understanding where they are. And they're going to be very susceptible, let's put it that way, to demagogues and all kinds of people telling them what the American story is. Like, for instance, the 1619 Project, that America was formed for the purpose of supporting slavery. I mean, and again, unless you have some history, you might be fooled into believing that.
And then explain in your words why any of this matters for our lives today and the decisions that we make and the way we behave in this moment.
Well, one way of doing that is considering the fact that we're about to celebrate our 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. So next year is America's 250th. To appreciate the country, to understand the country, as I've been saying, you need to understand its history. How can we have, Steve, a future, a shared future, if we don't have a shared past? And in order to have a shared past, there has to be certain facts, certain concepts in history that we all can relate to. That, yeah, we know this happened, then we know this happened. And we have a basis for that we can all kind of have a discussion. Right now, the teaching of history is unfortunately all over the place, except the one place it's pointed to is this leftist tilt, which suggests that our history is not something that we should be proud of. It's something we should be ashamed of. Now, to get right to your question, what is the difference between an American citizen who's proud of his history? And I would submit, in balance, there's so much more to be proud of in American history than to be ashamed of. And that person who's proud of American history in balance, there was a lot of good. Certainly, there's been a lot of bad. And the person who's just dismisses, has contempt for his country. What is the difference between those two people? And I think, again, the difference is obvious. One is interested in improving the country and along those initial principles that made it great. And the other is just saying, hey, let's just tear it all down because it's based on something awful. Why do we want to even continue this way? Let's do it a whole different way. And that, we're seeing that. And we're seeing how that affects young people because they don't have this grounding and they're not proud of their country, which is a big part of this book is an introduction into our 250th anniversary. And again, something I think we should be very proud of.
It's really it's so interesting to me because growing up in the UK, one of the things that I used to say about America, until quite recently before moving here in 2012 with my family and then becoming an American and being so proud of this country and so honored to be an American after having admired America for so long. One of the things I admired was that you did have in America, this is going back, a couple of decades, I suppose, a kind of shared sense of national pride in a way that maybe wasn't the case in England. And I remember thinking in England, things like the national flag, the Union Jack, as it's called, at some point was, not particular. There wasn't a sense of pride in it and being displayed publicly. And I was, it's so great that in America you have this totally shared patriotism, love of country that goes way beyond political disputes and so on. And it feels like that's really have sprayed in the last few years. Where did that come from? When do you, first of all, is that how you see it? And secondly, what can you point to as the start of that change?
Yeah, well, that's a very, very big question, Steve. And the start, you really have to, you can go back earlier, but the big change happens in the 60s. And the radical students of the 60s become the professors in the mid 70s into the 80s. And this kind of attitude, this contempt for America that we talked about, kind of seeps into the educational system. It doesn't happen all at once. And it takes time. I think even in the 90s, a student in the 90s would say, yeah, they got a fairly decent grasp of American history. Once you get into the 2000s and then in 2010s, then it's an entirely different matter. And the approach toward education gets more and more radical and more, just to put it plainly, just takes on a more and more leftist attitude. And this overtakes the educational system. There's some reasons for that having to do with the teachers' colleges and so on. But, we see it all through the college system. This is the whole critical race theory, DEI. This just kind of takes over. And it changes everything. And it changes the way American, think about it. You're a fifth grader and your teacher is teaching you about this slave owning founders. You're a fifth grader. It's not like you don't have any background. You're hearing it essentially for the first time. This is your introduction to America. Just think about how harmful that could be. And we're seeing it play out in real time.
It's really disgusting to me. And honestly, and you just think that, and it's so lacking in appreciation. All those people who grew up in America and sort of hate the country in that way. I think, don't you even realize how lucky you are to be an American, to be in this incredible country? Whatever there's nowhere, of course, like we always say, of course, there are things that we want to improve about America. That's why I'm running for governor, because I want to help improve my state of California, of course. But it's still the case, without any question at all, that whoever you are, there's nowhere better to be than America. You're not going to there's nowhere on earth where you have more chances of progress and opportunity and stability and security, whether that's economic or so, nowhere. So what are you talking about? It just makes me so infuriated. Don't you realize what an amazing place this is?
It's interesting. You're expressing it by obviously through your talk show and then running for governor, but you've just described why Dennis and I created PragerU. I mean, in around 2011, we just said this just can't go on. We can't just keep hearing about what a bad place America is, how bad Western civilization is. It's wrong. It's just flat out wrong. And so we need to craft, and I don't want to say craft a new narrative. It's not a new narrative. It's rediscovering what people always knew and always appreciated. And when you talk about coming to the U.S. and while you were in England, marveling about the notion of American patriotism, I mean, this was and hopefully will be again. I mean, I think we're starting to see some very good trends. A feature of America, that its citizens are proud of its country, and that means everything. Really, Steve, it's absolutely fundamental, foundational, and any other kind of basic term you can use. If you don't appreciate your country, you're going to have a completely different worldview
Yes.
than if you do.
And I would just tell you, just in a, just small thing. I mean, I'm doing, I don't know, dozens of events every week, small, whether they are town halls or Republican event, whether they're for my campaign or they're, like Republican Party events or open town halls, whatever it may be. And every single time, every event, we start, without fail, you have the Pledge of Allegiance, often the national anthem performed, but always the Pledge of Allegiance. And honestly, it depends on I'm often tearful as I say it. However, I mean, I must have said it, I don't know, thousands of times now. And it always strikes me that, I was involved in politics in the UK, Conservative Party, who think of themselves, great patriot. Never, not once. There's nothing like that. The national anthem. It just doesn't happen. And it's such an amazing thing. I'm always curious, and I'd like to go. I wonder whether, like, is it a partisan thing or not? Like, if I was running as a Democrat, does this happen at Democrat events? I truly don't know. I hope so, but it's just such an amazing thing about this country, and the fact that anyone can become an American and sign up to it, and it becomes our flag, and you're as welcomed as anyone else. It's just incredible. I just wanted to end by asking you to talk a little bit about the logistics of the book. Who are you hoping reads it? Where can they get it? What kind of impact are you hoping to have?
You can get the book anywhere you buy books. That's the easy part. I mean, it's really geared. Our PragerU's core audience are high school students and college students. So it's definitely geared toward them. Although in the last couple of years, I don't know if you know this, Steve, we've created PragerU Kids because parents were coming to us and saying, hey, I love PragerU, but by the time my kid's in high school, it's already too late. They've already been indoctrinated. So you have to start earlier. So we have PragerU Kids now, which starts from pre-K all the way through middle school. And then the 5-minute videos, which are the sort of flagship of PragerU, that any child in high school or even a precocious junior high schooler can deal with it. And then obviously adults can. So we want to reach the broadest possible audience. The book is really high school on up. It's appropriate for any of those people. And I want to say there's a kind of a homeschool aspect to this book that I want to just kind of throw out there, and that is, it would be a great project. I would love this to happen. If you're homeschooling your kids, okay, you've got it covered. But let's say you're not able to do that. If you were on a particular evening over a course of many weeks, say to the family, look, we're going to read a chapter of this book, The Honest Book of Presidents. Then we're going to watch the corresponding PragerU video, because each of these presidents has a PragerU video. And then we're going to do that individually or together. And then at dinner, let's talk about George Washington. Let's talk about James Monroe. Let's talk about William McKinley or whoever the president of the week is. And by doing that, you as the parent will learn a lot about American history that you didn't know, and you will be teaching your kids, and you'll have a great family discussion. You'll be homeschooling as
I
it
love
were,
it.
if you're not homeschooling.
I love it. And it's a brilliant, brilliant moment to do, obviously, with that in mind, leading up to the 250th anniversary next year. What a perfect way for everyone to get engaged in that. I also love I keep thinking of Christmas and everyone together around the, family. It's a great Christmas gift, it seems to me. And, a time when you can just start getting into it then with everyone together. I love it. Fantastic. Alan, really, really appreciate you and the team putting all this together and joining us today. Thank you.
Steve, it's a pleasure and an honor.
All right, everyone, that is our show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you follow my campaign for governor, stevehiltonforgovernor.com. Come back here for the next episode of the Steve Hilton Show. We're going to be off next week. It's the Thanksgiving holiday. So we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. And have a wonderful Thanksgiving, my favorite holiday, with your friends and family. See you soon.